ladies and gentlemen. In the interest of full disclosure, I want to tell you that I was somewhat reluctant when I received the invitation to join you this evening. You might ask why. Because ever since I was a student, I was told that the most difficult profession in which you have to take an exam is that of chartered accountants. And I knew so many chartered accountants in the family, amongst the group of friends, all very distinguished people, that I used to say, let's take the easy way out. But I was also told, and I think with the benefit of my experience, that the two professions which do very well, irrespective of what is happening otherwise, are the chartered accountants and the lawyers. I don't know whether that's correct, but I'm very happy today to join you on this 77th Chartered Accountants Day celebration. We celebrate here not just the legacy of an institution, your 77th anniversary, but I think more important, we celebrate here the spirit of integrity, diligence, and nation building that defines this great profession. So I want to join by congratulating all of you. When you were founded in 1949, I believe, soon after we became and took shape as an independent country, you had, I believe, only about 1,700 members. Today, I am told by the figures that were provided to me by my research team, you have something like 4.5 lakh members. But I heard a figure mentioned recently, it may be even more than that. It's 5 lakhs. So I stand corrected. A journey from 1,700 members to 5 lakh members during this period. You have 10 lakh students who are also associated with you. This is not just growth in numbers, it is also in a way a reflection of India's rise as a global financial powerhouse and the trust that the world places in our standards and professions. With chapters in over 47 countries, ICAI is now a symbol of Indian excellence beyond our borders. So my heartiest congratulations. In a long career of 39 years as a Foreign Service officer and as a diplomat, I had the privilege of being posted as India's permanent representative both to the United Nations in Geneva and the United Nations in New York. And I know this is not directly related to your body, but it's in a sense indirectly related to the profession. We had the great pleasure of having the CAG win elections to major UN bodies. I think they did the audit of the WHO, and then I think of the main UN, etc. And both during my tenure, those were elections we had to fight. But it's not just fighting in elections. You were coming on the basis of very well-developed professional standards. And you know, a body like the CAG will also have that, only they draw upon professional accounts and the kind of culture of accounting that develops in a country. Chartered accountants are in many ways the architects of financial integrity, the custodians of transparency, and partners in national governance. In a rapidly evolving financial world, your role has expanded beyond audits and balance sheets as you now help shape sustainability, accountability, and public trust in our institutions. Our own journey has been a somewhat interesting one. We often like to recall the past 10 or 11 years when the Indian economy in terms of global standing came from 11th position with a GDP of something like $2 trillion to now the 4th largest economy, waiting to be the 3rd largest economy in a short period of time with a GDP of $4.3 trillion. But actually, This is also only a small period in our economic history. If you were to go deeper into the economic history of this great country, you will find that, and I'm not saying this, I'm quoting a Cambridge historian called Angus Maddison for you. In the year 1700 or 1750 or so, India's contribution to the global economy, to the GDP of the global economy, Nandaji, was something like 25%. So it's not without reason that India or Bharat was referred to as a Sone ki chidiya. I am mentioning 1700 and 1750 deliberately because if you trace the 190 years of British colonial domination, that 190 years would start with the Battle of Plassey or 1757. So you take 190 years from there to 1947. And what happened during that period? You saw, witness the industrialization of the West, of the dominant colonial power, and the simultaneous deindustrialization of the colony or India. And look where we have come from there. Recently, we surpassed the United Kingdom to become the 5th largest economy in the world. We overtook Japan to become the 4th largest economy in the world. And we are, I think, if you go by the assessment of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, we are months away from overtaking Germany as the 3rd largest economy in the world. But sometimes, as you chartered accountants know, figures taken in isolation don't tell their story. When you look at series, when you look at that, you get a true picture. And I make a submission to you that our picture is actually much better than many people can understand. Why do I say that? Because the 5th largest economy that we overtook, United Kingdom, or the 4th largest economy that we undertook to become the 4th largest, Germany, they are growing at 2%. You are growing, we are growing at 6.5%. And Germany also is growing at 2%. Now, if you are growing at 2%, and I don't want to get into a numbers game, I have one person who's accompanying me today. I don't understand numbers, so I asked him what's happening in the global economy, etc. Believe me, and I want to quote for you in that context, something that I picked up this morning, some statistics, and they're fantastic. I want to read those out to you. Goldman Sachs has highlighted that India now is a core pillar of their Asia strategy, with equity capital markets contributing over 11% globally, which is more than double their earlier average. From tech and manufacturing to healthcare and clean energy, India is seeing strong investment momentum. In the last 2 months, this is a day-old report, 14 billion rupees of equity issuance was completed, reflecting deep investor confidence. With rapid growth in AI infrastructure and digital innovation, India is not rising, just rising. It is leading. The Walmart CEO, Douglas McMillan, called India's growth rare. Rare for an economy of this size, and reaffirmed plans to source $10 billion annually from our country. He praised the innovation and scale of Indian ventures like Flipkart and PhonePe, calling them truly inspiring. This is a testament to the strength of our economy and the critical role professionals like you play in ensuring its integrity, transparency, and global credibility. Let me also go a little further. The World Bank's country director, Auguste Kouame, said India's economy is projected to grow by 6.3% in fiscal year 26, following 6.5% in fiscal year 25, with trade accounting for only 40% of GDP as compared to 80% in many Asian economies. India is better insulated from external shocks. Positioned as a key anchor in the global south, India is set to play a vital role in shaping the future of the global economy. I would go a step further than this. If you have, he says trade is 40% of our GDP. I would go a little further. I said if you look at our overall picture, the external sector accounts for about 50% of our GDP, which in essence means that if you add the value of goods imported and exported, the value of services imported and exported, and the value of remittances, that's about 50%. But anyone, even with a nodding acquaintance of what's happening inside the Indian economy, the growth in the rural economy, the growth in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, will clearly realize that there is autonomous growth taking place here. That's reflected in our connectivity. We've gone from 74 airports in 2014 to over 150 now. If you look at the growth in our, urban transport system, I was Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs for 7 years, and I can tell you, we started when Vajpayee ji was the Prime Minister with the urban transport metro system. When Modi ji assumed responsibility, it had risen to 202 kilometers or something like that total. Today we have 950 kilometers of metros systems operational and another 1,050 kilometers under construction. We will very soon be the second largest urban transport provider in the world, overtaking Korea, Japan, and the United States. The United States has 1,560, but the United States is fully developed. They don't need to build more metro transport, whereas we are now in the stage of rising. Let me also share some other statistics with you. In any discussion in a country like ours, maybe not as much with chartered accountants and big chartered accounting firms, but if you're looking at the performance of any economy, and especially some economy which has been under colonial domination for 190 years, you look at the rates of poverty. And here I think it's truly mind-boggling. I used to cite a figure of 250 million people being lifted out of multidimensional or abject poverty, and I saw the figures recently, it's actually higher. It's 279 million, or 27 or 28 crore Indians have been lifted out of multidimensional poverty. And if you look at our schemes for social and financial inclusion, under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, 4 crore homes have been given to beneficiaries or labharthis, and after the Honorable Prime Minister assumed office for the third term, there's a decision to build another 3 crore homes. Now, if you talk about 4 crore and what it means in terms of population size of different countries, it's a mind-boggling figure. India's social safety net, more than 15.4 crore rural households have been connected with piped water under the Jal Jeevan Mission. India's social safety net has expanded. Ayushman Bharat now provides rupees 5 lakh health cover for over 70 crore citizens. Now, what is the Ayushman Bharat scheme? That every family can get a provisioning of up to 5 lakhs of rupees per year for medical treatment, diagnostics, surgery, post-operation care. Over the last 11 financial years, between 2014 and 25, India has attracted $748 billion in FDI, $748 billion, which represents a 143% increase over the previous decade. We are not just receiving more investment, we are being trusted by more investors, with source countries increasing from 89 to 112. This global confidence stems from reforms that made our system more transparent, efficient, and technology-driven. And without wishing to belabor a point, Nandaji, you will not have confidence in a system unless the economic entities and the others are properly audited, and the chartered accounting profession has also set itself up for higher standards. I know sometimes digressions take place, but as long as those are individual cases of acts of omission and commission, but the trust in the system, I think, is very high, and I commend you and the entire chartered accountants fraternity for that. Over the same period, we have seen the introduction and maturing of several landmark reforms, such as the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, PLI, GST, Direct Benefit Transfer, scrapping of over 25,000 compliances, and repealing 1,400 obstinate laws. When we look at the transformation of the tax administration, the results speak for themselves. We had, in 2014, about 3.6 crore income tax returns were filed. This year, that number stands at 8.5 crores. From 3.6 crore returns in 2014 to 8.5 crores, and 95% of them are processed within 30 days. That's just not an operational achievement, but a cultural shift in compliance, participation, and national contribution. Each return filed, each rupee of tax collected contributed to real change. An LPG connection for a mother, medicines for the poor, electricity for a rural home, pensions for the elderly, or jobs for the youth. Taxation, when managed with integrity and efficiency, becomes a tool for empowerment. Since I spent the greater part of my professional life outside India, representing India, I am perhaps sometimes a little less patient with criticisms of how we do things, because I have a better understanding of where the criticism is coming from. One of the things that surprises me, they said, oh, you are a $4 trillion economy, but you know your per capita income is low. So I said, you want a separate discussion on per capita income, or do you want a separate discussion on where we are going? Because if you compare our per capita income with, let's say, highly developed countries, you should also then look at their per capita debt. If our per capita income is, let's say, $2,800, $3,000, and we were compared, our per capita debt is what? $1,000 or thereabouts? I'm looking at my research assistant for a nod. And where is the one highly developed country? They've got a debt of, I don't want to give the figure. It's mind-boggling if you look at their debt. I mean, an economy which we just overtook, their per capita debt is $40,000. So what would you have? No, I want to ensure that our GDP goes from 4 trillion to 7 trillion to 10 trillion, which it will. You don't require knowledge of rocket science to know that if you're growing at 6.5% with a $4 trillion economy, it's only a matter of time because you become a $7 trillion economy or otherwise. So this goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047, जो प्रधानमंत्री जी का सपना है, संकल्प है, it's not only attainable. When we started talking about a $5 trillion economy some years ago, when I joined the Honorable Prime Minister, people used to, look at us with cynicism. Today, nobody questions that. The fact that you're going to be a $5 trillion economy and that you're going to overtake the fourth largest economy to become the third largest economy in a matter of months is taken for granted. You know what they say then? अरे भाई आप की जीडीपी साइज तो बढ़ जाएगा, आप हो सकता है 30, 35, 40 ट्रिलियन के हो जाए, but you will not be a developed country. So you ask them, says who? Says who? नहीं, वो developed country बनने के लिए, I have been a student of the multilateral system. मैंने UN system में कहीं developed country की परिभाषा नहीं देखी. I know what a least developed country is. That's defined. I know what a developing country is. That's defined. I know what graduation is, how you move from being a least developed to a developing country, and how, but wait a minute. You want to compare my healthcare system with some of the highly developed countries? I can lay a bet that many people in the West, in the highly developed countries, if they are given a choice of falling ill in a country like India or in the West, where there are high health insurance premiums, etc., they will say, I'd rather fall ill in India because you'll get a better quality of healthcare. And our doctors are second to none. Our hospitals are second to none. That is the difference. So I don't think that, the criticism, and there is envy, yes, I accept that. But, they'll have to take it in their stride. Because the fact is, by 2030, which is a tipping point, things will change. Now, Nandaji, I thought I had been invited here to talk about the sustainability part, so I'll just spend 2 minutes on that. One of your introductory statements talked about the net zero commitment, etc. You know, a few days ago when there were global tensions were at their peak in a nearby part of the world, proximate to us, I'm talking about the Gulf, everybody said, you know, India, we have what? 1.4 billion people, 140 crores. अगर उनकी आप एनालिसिस करो उसमें अलार्मिस्ट कितने हैं? You know, those who are wanting to create a crisis every day. मेरे कुछ पत्रकार मित्र भी आए, they're very close friends of mine. They keep coming to me looking for a fire. So I said, you are the fire brigade, but I must have a fire first. I said, कुछ नहीं होगा, तेल के दाम भी सही रहेंगे, don't worry. And the price of oil is back to 67. Why do I say that? A, there's enough oil available in the world, and it's available with people with a new find, including in the Western Hemisphere. But look at India's story. We used to buy oil from 27 countries, crude oil. We are buying it from 40 countries. We had a 1.4% biofuel blending in the year 2014 when Modi ji took over. We had a target of 10% blending by 2022. We achieved it 5 months in advance. We had a 10% blending target for biofuels, ethanol by 2030. We did that 6 years in advance. Today we are the second highest biofuel blending nation in the world. And today when I look at it, any day you could raise it from 20 to 25% and 30%. You have to just do your consultation and take what is along. Our green hydrogen story. I believe green hydrogen is the fuel of the future. When a green hydrogen bus flies on Delhi's road, the only thing it throws in the air is water vapor. And if similarly you talk about CBG, natural gas is a case in point. Very often I think that instead of being called a petroleum and natural gas minister, I should be called the Minister for Energy Transition. Because everybody here is now talking about electric vehicles. I'm very excited about that. But since that belongs to another ministry, I don't like to take too much credit. But I can tell you, if you look at the overall energy transition which is taking place in India, yeah, you will be using fossil fuels and crude oil for a long time to come. But the amount of natural gas we are using, you know, clean cooking gas. I want to tell you another thing. In the year 2014, we had 14 crore connections. Today, that 14 crore LPG connections has gone up to 33 crores. Now, if you presume that one connection is given per household, household has 4 members, you've actually saturated the country. Then if you look at natural gas, over and above that, natural gas, we had 14,000 kilometers, I think, in 2014. Today, we have to achieve 33,000 kilometers. We've already got 22,500 kilometers. And natural gas, which comes through the pipeline, that is natural, it's clean. The LPG gas is the product of what is made in a refinery, and that natural gas is also about 15-20% cheaper than the other gas. Just now, one of my oil companies, and we are very proud of that, has issued a major tender for green hydrogen production. And I'll just conclude by saying one thing, that I think green hydrogen will succeed in India, or rather it will succeed in any country where there is a lot of local demand, local production and local consumption. Because the gas by itself does not lend itself to transportation. You can transport green ammonia, etc. So India is another very prominent success story there. I just want to conclude quickly with some statistics. The Unified Payments Interface UPI has become the backbone of India's digital economy. As of mid-2025, India contributes nearly 50% of all real-time digital transactions globally with over 500 million active users. India's fintech adoption rate stands at 87% to a global rate of average of 67%. With more than 1.4 billion Aadhaar enrollments and mobile penetration exceeding 1.2 billion subscriptions, the digital identity and access are becoming universal. Financial inclusion has become a reality. Under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, over 55 crore accounts have been opened with total deposits crossing rupees 2.5 lakh crores. The JAM Trinity, Jandhan, Aadhaar and Mobile has enabled more than rupees 34 lakh crore worth of DBT transfers to 2014. And I want to conclude finally whether GST implementation, I think a reference has been made here. This is the 8th year of GST, and we now have 88 lakh active registration for the stock markets, meteoric rise with BSE market cap crossing rupees 400 lakh. The role of chartered accountants remains central to this, and I'd like to highlight that oil and gas PSUs, which I represent, have seen their market capitalization nearly double to rupees 8.7 lakh crore since 2014. And I finally want to conclude by saying that as we move towards a Viksit Bharat by 2047, your profession will be called upon again and again to ensure transparency, efficiency and accountability across sectors. On this special day, never forget that this profession has the power to protect and sustain the entire economy, ensuring stability and growth. Once again, I extend my heartfelt wishes to the entire faculty of the Institute and all the chartered accountants present here on the occasion of ICAI's Foundation Day. Your reputation, steadfastness and dedication are vital for building a developed India, Viksit Bharat. Jai Hind. Thank you very much.